I'm Melissa Case from Hat to Hem, and as you can see, I am rocking my 90s baby pride today. So I'm about to get started on the 1910s Petticoat and a 1910s corset cover. Maisie is currently quarantined to the kitchen, which is why she does not sound happy in the background right now. She'll live. Anyway, it's Friday, so right now my goal is to just try and make as much headway on these two items as I can before I go to my parents for movie night. We're watching Knives Out tonight. I'm very excited. So yeah, I should just get started. So here are my pattern pieces. I have the corset cover kind of just clipped together here. And then I have all the petticoat pieces here. It looks like the petticoat is going to be made up of 6 different pattern pieces. The fabric pieces, obviously, there'll be more of them because there's a couple of things we have to cut 2 for. And then the corset cover looks like it's only 3 pieces. Yet, despite this, it still had 11 pages of instructions. Look at this. Look at that. It sounds like I'm complaining. I'm not. These instructions are actually really cool because it does the typical, this is how you put it together, but then it also gives you some tips about other techniques. It shows you a couple of period sewing instructions. It gives some examples. So yeah, I haven't even started this pattern yet, but I would say that Wearing History is a pretty solid pattern company. And my petticoat pattern is going to be made up of Truly Victorian's 1911 petticoat. Alright, so let's get the fabric cut out and just keep on going from there, I guess. I just wanted to talk about this front pattern piece real fast. As you can see, I cut my pattern out 2 different ways for this front piece, and that's because I was following the instructions for the front fastening with no buttons showing. Hopefully this ends up working out alright, but the idea looks like I'm going to be using kind of this as like a flap to kind of cover the buttons. Hopefully it works out, but we'll see. One other thing I want to mention about this pattern that I thought was actually pretty unique is you'll notice that the seam allowance is different depending on what part of the pattern you're at. So we have 1-inch seam allowance, we have a 3/8 of an inch, 1 inch up here. So it's pretty interesting. I haven't really seen this in other projects that I worked on. But what's interesting is that in the pattern instructions, it tells you that the original sewing pattern did not have uniform seam allowances. The reason for the ununiform seam allowance is because these larger seam allowances allowed the garment to be let out more if it was necessary. And I just thought that was kind of cool. So I figured I would mention that real fast. Alright, so looks like I have all my pieces cut out for the corset cover. I think I might tackle the petticoat after I do this. It'd be nice to at least get one garment done today. I mean, I think it's probably going to be pretty intuitive, I guess, as long as I follow the correct seam allowances, but we shall see. I'll let you know if I have any kind of weird difficulties with this. Alright, just before I continue with the sewing here, I want to point out something about my sewing machine. Now mind you, I have had this sewing machine for several years now, and I got a little weirdness going on here, that's fine. Well, I was looking at it, and I realized that I never took the protective film off. I've seriously had this for years. I think this sewing machine, no, I know this sewing machine predates me dating Evan. So I've had this sewing machine at least 5 years. I just have no words for myself right now. I don't even have a good excuse. Alright, let's get sewing. Oh my goodness, there's one here too. Alright, so now that I've properly shaved myself, I'm going to finish off some of the edges on this corset cover. Because I have a feeling this might end up going in the wash, I'm going to actually use a little bit of bias tape binding here instead of using a serger, because I'm always afraid that the thread will unravel, and I really don't want to take the time to actually hem this, so I'm just going to cover it with binding. So I'm doing that to the armholes and also the side seams. And I'm going to be doing this on the two front pieces as well as the back piece. Right now I'm doing what I usually like to do when I sew a seam. I press the seam flat, and then depending on how it's finished, I like to press the seam open. The seam allowance here is a bit huge, but that's alright. You can see I have a notch here where the center front needs to be folded over. In theory, at least. I want to look at the pattern instructions one more time before I do this step. The idea is that one side will have the buttons, and the other will have the buttonholes and the button cover. So it looks like the shoulder strap and finishing the arm scythe is next. I wonder if I should finish the arm scythe first. It says I should do a bias facing made of self fabric, but I'm not sure I want to do that. I might do a small hem instead, because I don't want to use more fabric than I need to. Alright, let's see how this goes. Alright, so not too bad for probably about an hour and a half of work. It looks like a fun little wrap tank top, I guess. That's alright. Obviously it looks a little big right now, it's because everything has to be gathered up. But I think it's coming along nicely. Alright, so off to my parents for knives out, and then it's a toss-up between video editing and sewing. I think I'm leaning towards video editing. But there we go. So it's a start. Alright, just spent the last like 3 hours doing some spring cleaning. Now it's time to try and finish the corset cover and at least start the petticoat. So let's go. So I prepped the waistband and pressed the top and bottom edges under 3/8 of an inch. Now I'm working on the center front of the corset cover itself. I don't know if I'm going to be doing this right. I've read the instructions a few times, and for some reason, I think I'm just not patient enough to understand them right now. For the record, that's a reflection on me, not the pattern company. I'm just distracted by the news coverage of that virus going around. They announced that there were something like 20 cases in the state yesterday, and the day before that, there was only like 6. I'm actually wondering if that's what I was sick with earlier in the month. Anyway, I'm gonna wing it, which sounds awful, but here we are. So I fold the edge under 3/8 of an inch, and then another inch. I'm going to give it one more press. And now I'll just make a 1-inch wide tuck and fold it over. So that's how my idea is going to work. I think I'm correct, judging by the picture. And again, I'm only going by the picture because reading isn't working for me right now. There needs to be a little more overlap. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to stitch this first inch down first, and then the tuck, and I'm going to hope that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. It might not be, but it feels right, so I'm going to give it a shot. So I have the beading on top of the corset cover now. I did cheat a little bit with this. I was supposed to hem the top and then sew the beading on. The thing is, I didn't 100% hem it the way I think I was supposed to. I think I was supposed to do a proper hem. And what I did instead was I folded the top edge over towards the right side of the corset cover. I stitched that down without even pulling under one more time. And then I sewed the beading directly on top. It was kind of just a shortcut, and it looks like it's going to hold up alright, so I kind of stand by my decision to do that, because I think this looks okay, and it was probably a little bit faster than trying to fight with such a narrow hem. Remember earlier how I said I'm going to really read the instructions and pay attention? I pretty much just threw the instructions out and did what felt right. So this probably isn't as accurate as it could be, but I think it's going to work just fine. Meredith dropped off the shirtwaist, the hip padding, the hat, as well as these two red threaded corsets. And I just kind of wanted to show you them real fast because I think it's just really cool how much everything changed over a couple of years. The corset on the right is based off of the 1860s, and the corset on the left is based off the 1910s. Now, that is a significant amount of time, but I do think it's really, really interesting just to see how much the shapes have changed. I mean, there's so much difference between just the shape of the corset, but also the way they were shaping the body. And I don't know, I just thought it was really fascinating, so I wanted to show it off real fast. I finished the corset cover earlier today. It has a drawstring neckline and it buttons along the front. It stops right at the waist. It's pretty simple and straightforward. As you can see, it's looser in the front than it is in the back. It's pretty standard for around this time period. It's really a style left over from the really early Edwardian age where they had the pigeon breasted style for some reason. Alright, so here's a little hidden detail that no one is really going to see except for the actress, but I included it because I thought it was a little fun, and Meredith, my friend who's also working on the costumes for this suffragette program, she really likes contrast buttons, which I think are just kind of like a fun little detail. So I included some yellow buttons underneath this little placket here. This is also just a fun little hidden reference, if you will, because the colors for the suffragettes in America were yellow or gold, white, and purple. The actual dress is going to be white and purple, so I like that I was able to include a little bit of yellow in there too. Alright, on to the petticoat. Alright, so right now I am ironing the flounce for the 1910s petticoat. There's actually 3 layers at the hem of this petticoat, which is pretty impressive. It has the flounce, then it has the actual base fabric, I guess, and then underneath that there's a dust ruffle attached. So I'm curious to see how all that works. Right now my plan is I'm going to add a ruffle to the bottom of this, one of those pleated eyelet ruffles. I think it just looks nice if it pops out underneath her dress, as it might if she's walking around. So the plan right now is to sew that to the bottom of this, and I'm probably going to actually, hang on. So the plan is that once I sew this onto the bottom of the flounce, I will actually fold it up. I will trim back the bottom of the flounce and then just kind of stitch this up. So that will just kind of encase that raw edge. My goal for this is to have no raw edges and preferably no serging. I really don't want to risk this fraying or coming apart at all. And I'm always paranoid that when I use the serger that the thread's going to get caught in something and just completely pull out. I'm sure it won't, but I don't want to risk it for this. So, anyway, I am going to finish ironing and then it's time to get sewing. Maisie, look, it looks like you. Did they look like you? Oh, you don't care. I got more mail. Look at the cute little puppy sticker on the back. I love that it feels like Maisie's part of my brand now. Alright, let's see what this is. Oh, it's a puppy card. It's so cute. Oh my goodness. Alright, so I'm not going to read this one out loud, but thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate the card and best of luck with everything. I really mean that. Thank you. I swear it's like she knows I'm gonna film. Okay, so I have now joined the many people around the world right now who are not going to work. So that means this petticoat is getting done. So far I have the flounce done right here. So I have all 3 pieces sewn together. I have a nice little ruffle on the bottom, which I didn't really need to do, but I wanted to do, so I did. And I also have the dust ruffle done, which is just a little ruffle. That's not really per the instructions. It has a 1-inch hem. Please ignore Maisie. She's upset right now because she can't play with me because I need to get work done. So now my big goal is to get all my main pieces sewn together. I decided that I'm going to use a French seam, so I better get started on that. I think I'm just going to play music over the dog barking. You know what I'm currently thinking about? I'm remembering how I thought it was so weird that Ring Around the Rosie was about the plague. I was thinking, why would you make a nursery rhyme about the plague? I also just spent the last 20 minutes reading memes online about the coronavirus. And I don't know. Please ignore Miss Dramatic over there. She's not being neglected. She just went on a walk around 2 blocks. So she's getting exercise. She's getting love. She's just annoyed that she can't be in here with me. She'll live. Anyway, I think it's kind of reassuring that throughout time, humans always found a way to use humor to kind of help themselves through rough times. I think that's kind of nice. And it's kind of nice to know when it comes to like basic things like that, humans don't change that much. It's kind of like whenever people complain about how strict and awful they must have been in like the Victorian times, something like that. Their corsets and their high necklines and it. And all I can think is, do you really think people have changed that much? Because I don't. I feel like people have always wanted to just kind of enjoy their lives, I guess, and sometimes that involves having weird senses of humor. And really, anyone who's ever seen those pictures of the Victorians with their weird little decapitated head picture craze knows exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, seriously, this kind of shenanigans is just like the whole planking challenge. Oh wow, the planking challenge was a while ago. I need a more up-to-date trend. TikTok? Is it like TikTok? I don't know, I don't have TikTok. I'm not really sure what TikTok is. Is it like mine? I don't know. Anyway, when it comes to the fundamentals, humans don't change, and I like that. You know, since a bunch of us are kind of quarantined right now, I'm thinking about making a video just about different costume dramas that people can watch. Because yeah, there's YouTube. I want them to watch my videos. But my videos can only last so long. Maybe if I recommend a couple of series, that'd be kind of fun or interesting or give them something to do. I don't know. Anyway, what I'm doing right now is I'm pressing the front seams. What I did was I sewed up the seams. I did a very narrow, I think I did a 1/4 inch. And then I trimmed off a little bit. There was pressing involved. I turned it in. Yeah, you saw the video. It's fine. I will probably try and do an actual how to do a French seam video at some point. If anyone's interested, let me know in the comments if you are. I'm actually toying with an idea of having you guys vote to help me design a dress, and then I make the dress and I post a bunch of tutorials while I'm making the dress, so I could show you how I finish the hem of a dress because I use hem spacing. I could do how to make a French seam, what to do about placket and setting in sleeves. So that's something I'm thinking about. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to have you guys vote on different aspects of the dress you want to see. It's still up in the air though, I gotta think about it. Alright, she's all pressed, so time to hem. Alright, so the petticoat is done. I really like the shape of it. I kind of wasn't expecting it to have that cute little flare at the bottom, but I really like it. This came together much quicker than I expected. It's amazing how much quicker hemming goes when you don't have to worry about a bustle. Maisie, sit. Maisie, sit. Right, so as you can see with this skirt, sorry, I'm trying to keep the pup away. Now what I really liked about this skirt is that it's actually 3 layers at the hem. So we have the flounce right here, but then when you lift it up, we have this little dust ruffle underneath. Then underneath the dust ruffle, we have the base of the petticoat right here. So we have 3 layers on the bottom. Maisie's very interested in them. But no, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Good girl. So hopefully all these layers will help give it the correct shape. Right, so thank you for following along while I made this, and I'll be making the gown next time. Let me know in the comments if you like the corset cover or the petticoat better, and I will see you in 2 weeks with another video. Bye!